Every year we watch bucks on our cams develop throughout the summer, grow in that velvet, wondering what they're going to turn into. We all but have them in the freezer, and then all of a sudden,
Where'd he go? I swear he was here a minute ago.
what is up, harvesters? Welcome back to the subscribers, and if you're new here, welcome to Hobby Harvest. My name is Ken. Every year, it seems that right around bow opener, these bucks that we have had on camera all summer long just up and disappear. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about why that happens, and then more importantly, what we can do about it. So first, we're going to cover why these bucks disappear, and there's three main reasons for that. And first of all, it's because they switch from being in velvet to being hard-horned. When they're hard-horned, they can get into areas of the woods that they normally would not go when they're in velvet. So I bet each and every one of you watching this video has a buck in mind that just up and disappeared off of your cameras. Let me know down in the comments if he was in velvet or if he was hard-horned the last time you saw him on your cameras. So what happens is when these bucks get hardhorn, they can go into the thickest, nastiest, densest part of the woods that they just absolutely would not go to when they were in velvet, because they didn't want to risk racking that velvet and ruining it on that thick foliage, those thick, nasty, whatever it is in the woods. So what we do know is that they can now relate to that habitat. So however big a buck's home range is, if it's 3 miles, whatever, a lot of that home range is cut off in the summer when he's in velvet because he just can't get into it. He can't go there. So he has to stick to a much smaller part of his home range during those summer months, which is why you're probably seeing him more consistently during the summer, because you're in one of those smaller areas of his home range. His range obviously expands as we head into fall. You're less likely to see him in any specific area at that time. Now, the second reason he may have disappeared is simply hunting pressure. You know, it was bow opener. Everybody got out into the woods. They put all of that extra pressure in parts of the woods that had not seen it all summer long. You had the bird hunters out there. You had the hikers, people looking at the fall colors. You have all sorts of other people going out into the woods, putting pressure on areas of the woods that hadn't seen pressure all summer. And of course, that's going to push him off of an area. If he's getting pressured there too much, he's going to relate to another area of the woods. Even if your specific spot that you were seeing him on camera wasn't getting pressured, it could be an area that he was maybe bedding down in and then coming to your camera. If you're near a food source, or vice versa, if you were catching him in the bedding area, it may have been that his food source got pressured too much. And so he just decided to go to his next favorite bedding area and next favorite food source. And then that's why you're not going to be seeing him on your camera in that area anymore. Now, the third reason, and this of course is something that happens every single year, and it is the summer habitat decline. So as the summer habitat fades into what is our fall hunting habitat, the animals of all species are going to relate to the habitat differently, because there are now different areas that are considered thick cover to them, and there are other areas that are considered good food sources to them. Of course, you know, the farmer's egg has been out there all summer long, but now it's starting to dry up. It's starting to get harvested. That's becoming less desirable to the herd. Yes, they will still feed on it, but we also have things like acorns dropping. When I was just sitting a couple days ago, I had a herd of 6 does come in, and they were actually feeding on the box elder trees still, because there's still a few leaves left on them. They haven't fallen off yet. But once those box elders lose their leaves, there goes that food source for them too. So they're going to have to continue to change how they relate to the natural habitat in your area based on how it declines going into fall. And so an area in the summer that maybe had leaves and twigs and stuff all over the place provided perfect cover for them, great bedding area, great browse for them. As all of those leaves fall off, it may be wide open and they want absolutely nothing to do with that area. So they're going to have to go find a denser, thicker part of the woods that is thick during the fall hunting season and beyond. This is why I always talk about things like red osier dogwoods, willows, box elders. Those are great habitat trees because those things hold a thick branch and a desirable browse for the deer herd, because they're a softer wood, so the deer can continue to feed on those all winter long. And that's where you're going to find them as we head into fall, because they like that thick branch cover when it doesn't have leaves on it. And it's also a browse for them. So they're going to shift more to that stuff as we see our summer habitat deteriorate. All right, so let's get into what we can do about it. So first of all, don't get discouraged. These bucks have to be somewhere. They didn't just up and disappear. Well, of course, unless they're in your neighbor's freezer or dead in a ditch somewhere because they got hit by a car, which is also why I don't like the idea of like a target buck. I talk about this in other videos as well. If you have your sight set on this one target buck and then he up and disappears off of your camera, yeah, he might be somewhere and we might have to switch our strategy, which I'll talk about here in a minute, of how we're going to get in front of him again. But what if your neighbor got him? What if he got hit by a car? You know, this is why if you set your whole season on one buck and he up and disappears, it's kind of, you know, fruitless to even consider sitting for the rest of the season if you're just hoping he shows back up and you not knowing that maybe he's just not here anymore. So I always like to have a percentage of bucks that are my target bucks, top 10%, 15, 20, 25, whatever it happens to be for your property. Or if you're just out to shoot does and whatever walks in front of you, by all means do that too. I am recording right now during the gun youth hunt here in Wisconsin, and that's a great time. There's a lot of kids out there shot some really nice bucks this weekend, and some of these guys might have been, you know, seeing those as their target buck, and some little kid just went and shot your target buck with a rifle during the early youth hunting. That's awesome. We need more young hunters in this community. I am never going to bash those as so many have on social media, but I just think, you know, the more of us, the better. We're definitely outnumbered against the population of the world, so why not bring in more young hunters? And if that's what's going to hook them for life, by all means, I'm happy for them. So how are we going to find these bucks? Well, the same way we find any deer, we're going to have to get out there and we're going to have to scout. Now, you can do some scouting right from your computer screen. So a good way to tell where these bucks have maybe moved on to is we need to figure out where this new cover is. And a way we can do that is to use Google Earth. So I say Google Earth, not Google Maps. Google Earth, you used to have to download it. You don't have to anymore. You can use it on your browser, but the downloaded version does have some more options and it's free to use. So Google Earth allows you to look at satellite imagery and then go back years in the past as well. So you can see how an area has changed throughout the years, where on Google Maps, you just see the current satellite imagery. So what this helps you do when you're scouting is you want to look for something that was years ago. Maybe it was an open field or whatever, and now it's trees. So that's going to mean those trees are however many years old that you can go back and look at the image and then look at today, because those young trees are going to still be pretty close to the ground, and those deer are going to absolutely love having all of those stems very close to the ground instead of that high canopy way above them that's going to choke out all the sunlight and not let a whole lot grow near the ground where they need it the most. So that's an excellent place to look for bedding areas, is in that regenerative growth in those new areas. You can also maybe catch that something was logged off a couple years ago, whatever. You're going to want to find these newer forest areas with newer regenerative growth, and that is where you're going to find bedding areas. Now, secondly, we're going to want to find their food sources. So a great way to do this, if you're in ag country, is get out that like last hour before dark and go drive around and see which fields the deer are in, which edges they're in, and then just assume that they came from cover immediately into the trees from that edge of the field. They don't typically run all the way across a field or come out onto a field and then run down the edge of it. Where they came onto that field edge is probably where they're bedded off from there. And that's a great way to get an idea of where they are, even if it happens to be an area that's not on your property, not on property that you have permission to hunt, but at least you know where they are. And then we can try to shift them back in front of you. Now, the other thing is if you're out in the woods walking around scouting this time of year, now just mind you, you're also then putting more pressure on the woods and you're going to spook deer out since we're already in the hunting season here. But what you're looking for here is fresh rubs. Now that those bucks are hard horned, those rubs are going to be in bedding areas and near food sources. So that is a great way to tell if you have found a food source or a bedding area that they are relating to this time of year, is there are fresh rubs there, because these bucks have only been hard horned for a little less than a month at this point. So if there's a fresh rub, we know they've been using this area recently. So once we find these new areas that they've shifted to, Like I said, don't put too much pressure on those areas or you might force them to shift to another area. But once you found them, get those cell cams out there. I'll link the ones I use down in the comments. They're really good quality for the price that they are. They're the ones I use to show you guys B-roll here on the channel. And just go check those out if you're in the market for some new cell cams. But you want to get your cell cams out there so you're not putting that additional pressure on the area just to check a camera. And the cell cams, now that we have them, is an excellent way to do that. And then, of course, as we hunt these areas, just be very conscious of the weather, that you're hunting the good quality days that would be on the back side of a cold front. That's why I was sitting this past Friday night before the youth gun hunt here in Wisconsin, because we had just had rain all day Friday. The temperature dropped like 30 plus degrees. It was an excellent PM sit. And like I said, I saw about, I think it was 6 does that came in front of me. They were all within 15 yards of me, but I was waiting on the big papa to walk in and he just didn't before dark. And then the funny thing is, all of a sudden my cell cam reports, and there were actually 3 more does walked into that area 15 minutes after I got out of the stand. So that just really goes to show you that really make sure you're only hunting these high percentage days, because that's most likely when you're going to see the deer movement, but also be really conscious of your wind and your thermals while you're on stand and on your walk in and out, and just absolutely sneak in and out. The fact that I was able to sneak in, sneak out, and then have deer after dark come in just 15 minutes after I was probably not even to the truck yet is just a good testament to, like, I'm doing exactly what I need to do to sneak in and sneak out. If you guys are seeing that happen on your property, you're doing it the right way. And you just know that you aren't blowing out those stands. Then you're keeping these stands and these areas very like safe and secure for the deer, and they'll keep coming back to them. And now if you're like, yeah, Ken, that's great, I know where the deer are, they're just not on my property, how am I going to hunt them? Well, I have a ton of other videos on how to improve the habitat on your property, how to put in quality food plots and such on your land. Get those things like those red osier dogwoods, yellow twig dogwoods, those willows, those box elders, all those great habitat shrubs, trees, grasses, and everything else that I talk about on my channel growing on your property so that it becomes the hub and the attraction during the fall hunting season. Unfortunately, this time of year, that's something we're gonna have to wait until next year to do, although we're coming up pretty quickly here on the time of year where we can frost seed switchgrass. That can be done during winter. And then we can also clone things like red osier dogwoods, willows, yellow twig dogwoods, etc., and get those started for the spring as well. I have other videos on my channel. If that interests you, you can go check those out. If you guys really enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this one. And if not, go check out that one. That was pretty sweet too. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.